Spare a thought, would you, for the Galaxy S25 Plus, the forgotten middle child of the Samsung family, too big to be a mini and lacking most of what makes an Ultra exciting. You could see it as the oatmeal of smartphones. But at the same time, compared to the Ultra, you could also argue that it occupies the sweet spot in Samsung's lineup. It's more reasonably priced and reasonably sized. It still has all the power you actually need, and you get a bigger battery than the upcoming super slim S25 Edge. And yet, with recent price cuts putting the S25 Ultra perilously close to its smaller sibling in terms of cost, should anyone be considering the S25 Plus? It's time to dig into how these two stack up, and I'll see you after the jump to do just that. So the difference primarily in how these two feel to use comes down to what is on paper some pretty small size and weight differences. Although the Ultra is more compact than it's arguably ever been, the S25 Plus is undeniably easier to handle, being more of a traditional large form factor phone as opposed to an absolute unit like its big brother. The Ultra of course packs in a larger display, a slightly bigger battery, more photographic trickery, and naturally the S Pen stylus. The downgrade to aluminium in the frame of the Plus isn't something you'll really notice when you're handling it, but it does affect the range of colours available, and I have to say, even the more subdued colours like this navy blue are more vibrant than any of the major colour options available for the Ultra. The first major downgrade you're going to see going from Ultra to Plus is in the display. Not so much the panel itself, but its anti-reflective capabilities. Granted, I doubt you'll be disappointed with the panel of the S25 Plus in a bubble. It still boasts a very respectable peak brightness level of 2600 nits, but that extra clarity in daylight and pitch blacks that you get from the S25 Ultra's second-gen Gorilla Armor panel, well, it's tough to give up once you've used it. You're also looking at ever so slightly thicker bezels on the S25 Plus versus the Ultra, though unless you're going in and looking in microscopic detail, I don't think that's a difference that's really going to bother you. What's more apparent, especially if you place these two side by side, is the superior speaker of the S25 Ultra. Its sound is richer with noticeably bassier output and less scratchy sound at higher volume levels. Not to say the Plus's is bad necessarily, just Samsung obviously is using higher spec components in the Ultra. Elsewhere though, so much of the internals of these phones are identical. Same base RAM and storage, same SoC, the excellent Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, boasting higher clocks than other 8 Elites, and my benchmarking reflected this similarity. There's really nothing in it. Doing tests side by side, sometimes the Plus came out ahead by a hair, sometimes it was the Ultra, but all really landed within the margin of error. I had expected that perhaps the larger size of the Ultra and perhaps larger cooling apparatus would give better endurance over time in some benchmarks, but that, as you can see here in 3D Mark stress test, very similar looking charts across the board. Also didn't see any significant difference in battery life between these two. Both are solid performers with enough juice in the tank for a full day of heavy use with 7 or more hours of screen on time. Even though the battery capacities here aren't anything much to write home about, Samsung's efficiency and optimizations mean both are reliable performers. Same state of affairs with charging speeds, nearly identical in my experience, around 3/4 full from a 30-minute charge, then a slower charging rate for that remaining 25%. So aside from the cameras, the biggest functional thing that you're missing out on with the S25 Plus is of course the S Pen, and how much of a big deal that is to you will depend on how you use your phone. For me personally, it's no great loss. I'll admit that some of the Galaxy AI features like AI Select do work really well with that stylus, and the same obviously goes for the creative drawing assist feature as well. Even so, these aren't features I use every day, so ultimately the S Pen is something I can live without, and when I use those drawing features, my finger works just as well. And living without the S Pen with the S25 Plus is an easier sell this year since Samsung eliminated Bluetooth functionality from its stylus. Fingers crossed for a triumphant return of those features in the S26 Ultra if some rumors are to be believed. Fundamentally though, in every other area, this is the same software experience, only on a slightly smaller canvas with the Plus. Both phones will enjoy the same 7 years of Android updates and should be treated with similar priority levels when it comes to the speed of those updates. Check out our other S25 videos if you want to see what's new in One UI in 2025, but the TLDR version is basically that Samsung's redesigned a good chunk of its UI, particularly quick settings, the app switcher and widgets, and paid a lot of close attention to the animations and the general feel of the software for a much smoother experience. The cameras are where the rubber really hits the road with this comparison. The Ultra's biggest draw for most folks is still that unique quad camera setup, which, despite some stiff competition from Chinese rivals this year, remains among the best out there. And on paper, the S25 Plus camera system just doesn't seem like much of anything. or one of a 1.5-inch primary camera, decent but nothing to write home about, the same ultra-wide as last year, and a tiny 10-megapixel 3x telephoto. Yet a lot of the time, there's very little in it between these two cameras, particularly in daylight with the wide and ultra-wide. You can see the same Samsung color science at play in shots with these two cameras taken on both phones, despite the difference in optics. In darker indoor scenes as well as nighttime shooting, you do see the benefits of the larger sensors, and in particular the ultra-wide of the S25 Ultra. In this shot, for example, the edges of the frame are much cleaner with less chroma noise. With the primary, it's a tougher call. If you zoom way in, you can see a bit more noise in this image from the Plus, but there just aren't that many differences to see unless you're talking about extremely low light conditions. As before, very similar color science from both phones as you'd expect, and if you pixel peep in certain areas of fine detail like the text in the notice here, they do appear clearer and more legible in the shot from the Ultra. Overall then, obviously a win for the S25 Ultra in low light, but I would say a pretty modest one. At 3 to 5 times, you're dealing with the exact same hardware in both phones, so obviously there are no differences to speak of. Above 5 times though is where the Ultra's lead begins and only becomes more insurmountable as you head towards the 30 times zoom limit of the S25 Plus. And at that level there really is no contest. The shot from the Plus looks like mush, whereas you've still got a relatively good looking photo thanks to the larger sensor and higher zoom range of the Ultra. That zoom advantage obviously extends to video as well, where you can clearly see greater detail and much longer range with the Ultra, no surprises there. You also do get a feel for the superior optics of the Ultra's primary and ultra-wide in video mode, though as before it is pretty situational, mostly noticeable in low light. In daylight conditions, it's kinda tough to spot any real differences between footage shot with the wide cameras, and with the ultra-wide, the only real degradation I saw from the Plus was a slight softening of the image around the edges of the frame. So it's a pretty clear win for the Ultra, I think, in videography, but I've got to say the primary camera in particular on the Plus held up a lot better than I expected. Let's take a look at some more sample footage before we wrap things up. So the choice between the S25 Ultra and S25 Plus is less of a no-brainer than I originally thought. And I've been quite surprised by how much I like the Plus. Far from being a milquetoast non-starter, Samsung's mid-tier flagship is anything but mid. Though it lacks some of the star quality of its more expensive sibling in terms of display, it packs core performance where it counts, matching the Ultra in multitasking, gaming and benchmarks, as well as battery life and charging speeds. And as for the S Pen, honestly, I could take it or leave it. Where I'm drawn to the Ultra though is with its excellent reflection cancelling display and, crucially, those cameras. That continues to be the real strength for this top-end Samsung smartphone versus all the others. While the wide and ultra-wide aren't dramatically better most of the time versus the Plus, telephoto and video performance really benefits from the larger sensor size and of course the presence of that higher quality 5x shooter. Now for a lot of folks, I get it, the Plus is more than enough phone for most people. It's cheaper, lighter, thinner, and as good as the Ultra in an awful lot of areas. But for me, if I'm choosing a phone for the long term, I'm going with the best camera I can afford, and for me, the extra asking price of the Ultra is more than worth it. But that's just me. Let me know down in the comments which one you'd pick, stick around for more comparisons like this. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.